In the first chapter, we had done what is GDP. GDP is nothing but gross domestic product. Gross is total, domestic is of the home itself. So the total value of all the final goods and services produced in the three sectors, primary, secondary and tertiary, is taken into account for calculating the GDP. Now, when we are taking into account the various goods and services to know the total production of each sector, we are only taking into account the final goods and services and not the intermediary goods. Now, what are the final goods and services? They are those goods and services which in the finished form are sold in the market. The intermediary goods or the intermediate goods are those goods which are used by the producer for producing other goods. So these products are known as intermediate goods. Here is an example of a packet of biscuit. The packet of biscuit is the final product, it's the final good. All the products that go into the manufacturing of that packet of biscuits are intermediate goods. You are putting nuts there, milk, wheat, sugar, oil, essence, whatever is going into the production of that final product, a packet of biscuits, are known as intermediate products or intermediaries. While calculating the total production of a sector, the value of only the final goods is taken into account. Only the final goods is included and not the intermediate goods. The value of final goods already includes the total value of the intermediate goods. If we count the value of intermediate goods also along with the final goods and services, then that will lead to double counting. That is counting the value of a good more than once. Now here again the example we saw in the previous slide that the packet of biscuit is the final product. Suppose that packet of biscuit is costing rupees 15, so that rupees 15 is also including the cost of the farmer, the rate at which he sold the wheat to the flour mill. It also includes the value of the flour mill when it is selling that product to the biscuit company, and all the other products like sugar, like oil, like essence are also included, which is going to come up to the final good, that is the biscuit, the packet of biscuit, which is for rupees 15. Here only the value of a packet of biscuit, that is 15 rupees, will be counted, as it already includes the value of wheat, flour, essence, oil, etc. Once again, we understand GDP, gross domestic product, the total value of all the goods and services produced in the three sectors, primary, secondary and tertiary, in a particular year are calculated and adding up. The sum of the production of these three sectors gives us the total production in a country called GDP or gross domestic product. So when we define gross domestic product, it is nothing but the final value of all the final goods and services produced within a country during a particular year. Again, I am repeating, in economics, you cannot separate goods and services. We use the term final value of all the goods and services produced. Now, talking about the historical changes that have taken place in the three sectors over the years. In the beginning, the primary sector was very prominent. Man was a nomad. He used to keep moving from one place to another. So all the activities that he was carrying on at that time were primary activities, farming, fishing, etc. Then after many years, the processing started. Then that was the phase of the secondary sector. Now, in the last many years, the primary and the secondary sectors have become absolutely super saturated. There is no place for them to generate any kind of employment. So now in the recent years, the shift has been from primary to secondary to tertiary sector. Now it is to the tertiary sector to provide the maximum number of jobs in the coming years. This graph is showing the contribution of the three sectors, primary, secondary and tertiary, to the GDP. This is the comparison between 1973-74 and 2013-2014. Here you will find that till 1973-74, 40% of the share of the GDP was from the primary sector, but now it has gone down. Hardly 10%, 10 to 12% of the share of the GDP is only from the primary sector. Share of agricultural sector in GDP has decreased and that of the tertiary sector has increased over the years. This graph is showing the share of sectors in employment. The latest graph 2017-18 is showing you that today 44% of the people are employed in the agricultural sector. Now, correlated to the previous slide that we saw, today if 44 people, that is 44 out of 100 people, are employed in the primary sector, then their contribution is hardly 10 to 15% to GDP. What it means is that one person employed in the primary sector is not even earning 1 rupee, not even earning 50 paisa. That means 44 people out of 100 are only contributing 10 to 15 rupees. So that what it means is that even though the primary sector is providing largest number of employment, yet it is the tertiary sector which is contributing the maximum to GDP, employing only 31% of the population. Now, some of the questions that we would like to think about: why does primary sector still continue to employ maximum number of people, as we saw in the previous slide? In India, there has been a change in the share of three sectors in GDP, but similar shift has not taken place in the case of employment. What it means is that though the tertiary sector is employing the least number of people, the maximum contribution to the GDP is from the tertiary sector. More than half of the workers are working in primary sector, yet producing only a quarter of GDP. Why? Some of the reasons are: enough job opportunities were not created in the secondary and the tertiary sectors, even though the output of the two sectors went up. Existence of underemployment and disguised unemployment in the primary sector. Primary sector employs more people in agriculture than required. Even if few people are pulled out, the production will not fall. I'll just give you a very simple example. If 8 people are involved in a particular farm and only 5 are needed, 3 are disguisedly unemployed, they are underemployed. They may be appearing to be employed, but if those 3 people are pulled out, production will not suffer. 8 people are doing the work is of 5 people. If 5 people do the work, the output will be the same. If 8 people are doing the same work, output is the same. So 3 are extra. In the primary sector, people appear to work, but they are working less than their potential and so are not fully employed. Therefore, there exists underemployment and disguised unemployment, due to which the contribution of the primary sector to GDP is less, even though it employs a large number of people. On the basis of organization, the sectors can be classified into organized and unorganized. In the organized sector, the working hours are fixed, overtime wages are paid, appointment letter is issued at the time of appointment, and salary is received on a fixed date. On the other hand, in the unorganized sector, there are no fixed working hours, no overtime is paid, no appointment letter is issued, and there is irregularity in receiving salary. Now, take the example of my maid and myself. I am working in the organized sector and my maid is working in the unorganized sector. So we can classify this now accordingly. The organized sector is registered with the government. The rules and regulations of the government are followed. The unorganized sector is outside the control of the government. Rules and regulations of the governments are not followed. There is job security in the organized sector. There is no job security in the unorganized sector. People may be asked to leave anytime. Now, paid leaves, sick leaves, provident fund, medical benefits are all given to the employees in the organized sector. The same are not given to the employees in the unorganized sector. How to protect the workers of the unorganized sector? Now, in the rural areas, the people like cobblers, small and marginal farmers, weavers, carpenters, etc. work in the unorganized sector. They can be protected by providing loans at low rate of interest, providing inputs at subsidized or low rates. Inputs are all those requirements that are needed for producing a particular product. Giving adequate storage and transportation facility, providing market outlets for the sale of their goods. In the urban areas also, the workers in the unorganized sector, they need to be protected. Mainly the workers in small scale industry, casual workers means those who are only getting a job for some days of the year, mainly working at construction sites, rickshaw pullers, rag pickers, etc. are the ones who are working in the unorganized sector in the urban areas. They can be protected by providing loans at low rate of interest, giving support for the marketing of their outputs, whatever they are producing, helping in procuring or obtaining the raw materials. Sectors can also be classified on the basis of their ownership, the ownership of assets. Assets are things like a factory, land, or any kind of stock, etc. are all your assets. If the company is owned by the individuals, a few individuals, the assets and delivery of services are in the hands of a few individuals, it is called a private sector, for example, Reliance, Kingfisher, etc. But if the ownership of the assets and delivery of services is in the hands of the government, owned by the government, owned and run by the government, it is called a public sector. MTNL, Indian Railways, ONGC, all these are examples of the public sector. In conclusion, it can be said that over the years, the primary sector is contributing less to the GDP now. Its contribution to the GDP has gone down, whereas the tertiary sector is now contributing the maximum to GDP. Even though the primary sector is employing the maximum number of people, yet the tertiary sector is the one which is contributing the most to the GDP. So the tertiary sector is going to be the sector which is going to be the most important sector in the years to come, because the primary and the secondary sector have no potential to provide employment to opportunities now.